Breaking news, Viking Nation, the first revelation is about to detonate inside US Bank Stadium. And what you're about to hear will shake the purple and gold to its core. Right now, behind closed doors, a young quarterback is experiencing something that could redefine his entire career. A legend everyone counted out has been quietly schooling the future. A kicker's nightmare in London has everyone questioning reality itself. A franchise desperately searching for its soul as injuries pile up like bodies on a battlefield. And a Pro Bowl tight end vanishing from the stat sheet while the coaching staff defends him like he's still dominating. Each of these shocks could redefine the future of this team, and if you bleed purple, you need to hear every single word. Because while the Packers are celebrating up north and the Lions think they own this division, the Vikings are navigating through absolute chaos, and somehow, someway, they're still standing at 3-2. But here's the question that's tearing through the fan base right now. Is this team about to figure it all out and become the monster we know they can be? Or are we watching the slow unraveling of a season that had Super Bowl dreams written all over it? The answers are coming fast, and they start with the most important position on the field. If you believe the Vikings are destined for greatness more than you fear the Packers' smug faces, hit that like button right now, and let's dive into the first bombshell that nobody saw coming. Hold your breath, because the quarterback situation in Minnesota is about to get very interesting. For the last 3 weeks, Carson Wentz, yes, that Carson Wentz, the journeyman who's been on 6 teams in 6 seasons, has been leading this Vikings offense while the franchise's golden boy sits on the sideline watching, learning, and according to head coach Kevin O'Connell, experiencing some real moments of growth. **J.J. McCarthy**, the second-year quarterback who was supposed to be the future of this organization, has been sidelined with a right ankle sprain he suffered on September 14th, and in his absence, Wentz has done something remarkable. He's gone to and won as a starter, keeping Minnesota's playoff hopes alive while the kid in the baseball cap takes mental notes from the sideline. And here's where it gets fascinating. O'Connell revealed on Monday that McCarthy has been soaking it all in, absorbing every single snap, every audible, every decision Wentz makes under pressure. And the coaching staff believes this unexpected education might be the best thing that could have happened to the young quarterback's development. Think about it for a second. McCarthy came out blazing in Week 1 against the Bears, throwing the touchdown passes and rushing for another score in the fourth quarter to lead a comeback victory that had the entire league buzzing. But then reality hit hard, 0 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in the other 7 quarters. He played before the ankle gave out. The kid showed flashes of brilliance, but he also showed he's still raw, still learning, still figuring out how to read NFL defenses that are light years faster and more complex than anything Michigan threw at him. So what does O'Connell think is the most critical part of McCarthy's development right now? I think the most critical part is going to be the techniques and fundamentals of playing the position. The way he's worked so hard to develop throughout the spring and summer, O'Connell said, I think it's going to be more about the physical side of the lower body mechanics, and then trying to put together a game plan for him throughout the practices. How much can he get done? What is his pain level after practices? To try to have the most consistent level of recovery possible. Meanwhile, Wentz has been absolutely slinging it. 69 of 100 passes completed for 759 yards, 5 touchdowns, and just 2 interceptions over 3 games. Last Sunday in London, he led the Vikings on a 10-play, 80-yard touchdown drive in the final minutes to beat the Browns 21-17, completing 9 straight passes and looking like the quarterback who once carried the Eagles to within 1 game of the Super Bowl. But here's the million-dollar question that's dividing the Viking Nation right down the middle. When McCarthy is healthy, does he automatically get his job back? Or has Wentz done enough to keep the starting role? O'Connell hasn't tipped his hand publicly, and that silence is deafening. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk reported that McCarthy's status for Week 7 against the 4-1 Philadelphia Eagles is still up in the air. Even though the Vikings have a bye week to get him right, the plan is for McCarthy to be at the team facilities during the bye, throwing with other players, ramping up his workload, and proving he's ready to reclaim what's his. I anticipate his workload increasing, O'Connell said. We're really going to take advantage of that bonus Monday, not just with him, but with our entire team. But let's be real here. O'Connell isn't rushing McCarthy back until he's 100% healthy. And given the fact that they didn't put him on injured reserve, The expectation was always that he'd be back after 3 or 4 weeks max. We're now at 4 weeks post-injury after the bye, and if the kid can't go, something went very wrong. Do you think McCarthy should start immediately when healthy, or has Wentz earned the right to keep playing? Drop your answer in the comments, because this debate is just getting started. And if you're riding with McCarthy through thick and thin because you believe in the future more than the present, smash that subscribe button and let the Packers fans know we're coming for that division crown. But hold on, as shocking as that quarterback controversy is, the next update cuts even deeper, and it involves a moment in London that has the entire league scratching their heads. And just when fans thought it couldn't get crazier, here comes the next bombshell, and this one is straight out of the Twilight Zone. Picture this: fourth quarter in London, Vikings trailing the Browns. Asterisk asterisk, well, Reichert asterisk asterisk lines up for a 51-yard field goal that would tie the game at 14-all and give Minnesota momentum heading into the final stretch. Reichert, who has been money all season long, steps up, kicks it, and the ball sails wide right. But wait, look at the replay. Watch it again. Do you see it? The ball seems to change direction mid-flight, almost like something invisible reached out and swatted it away. Fans watching the broadcast immediately started screaming that the ball hit a camera wire suspended above the field at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and the replays from the television broadcast seem to show exactly that. The ball is tracking straight, then suddenly it jerks to the right, and Reichert misses a kick that he normally makes in his sleep. But here's where it gets wild. The refs didn't see it, didn't review it, and didn't call for a rake kick, even though NFL protocol clearly states that if a loose ball in play strikes a video board, guy wire, sky camera, or any other object, the ball is dead immediately and the down is replayed at the previous spot. Kevin O'Connell admitted after the game that he didn't see it happen in real time, and even if he had, there's no protocol for a coach to challenge that kind of play. I didn't notice it. I didn't see it at the time, O'Connell said. I would leave it up to the league to decide if that's something that there should be some protocol in place that I should know about. But aside from maybe somebody in the booth alerting me that they saw it, Orwell himself is going to be a critical guy in that moment. A lot of times a kicker is much like a golf shot. They're head down and may not see it initially. He told me he thought he hit it well, and it doesn't end up that far off the line, historically, since we've had him here. But I'm not really sure what to say about it other than it was unfortunate if it happened, and if it didn't, so be it. So let's break this down. Reichert, who has been one of the most accurate kickers in the league since the Vikings drafted him, suddenly shanks a kick so badly that even his own coach is confused. O'Connell said it himself, well, doesn't end up that far off the line. Historically, translation, this isn't normal, and something fishy happened. The aerial view from the Alt-180 film doesn't show a visible wire in the replay, which only adds to the mystery. Some people are saying it's an optical illusion. Some are saying the wire is there, but too thin to see on camera. And some are saying Reichert just flat out missed. But Viking Nation knows better. We saw the ball move. We saw the trajectory change. And we're not crazy. A similar situation happened in the 2022-23 NFC Championship game between the Eagles and the 49ers. When Brett Kern's punt for Philly appeared to deflect off a camera wire, the refs reviewed it. The video evidence was inconclusive, and the play stood. Philadelphia went on to crush San Francisco 31-7 before losing to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, so the camera wire controversy didn't last more than a few minutes. But if the Vikings had lost to the Browns on Sunday, this would be the only thing anyone is talking about right now. Thankfully, Minnesota pulled out the win 21-17, and the mystery can remain just that, a mystery, without costing the team a crucial victory. But here's the real question. Should the NFL have better protocols in place for this? Should there be sensors on the wires that alert officials when contact is made? Should kickers be allowed to signal immediately if they feel something went wrong? And most importantly, why are there camera wires hanging over the field in the first place in 2025 when drone technology exists? If you think the NFL needs to figure this out before it costs a team a playoff spot, hit that like button and let your voice be heard. And if you're still fuming about that kick, and you want the league to admit they screwed up, drop a comment and let's flood the zone until someone at NFL headquarters pays attention. Because the next story is even more personal. It's about the future of this franchise, and the news is finally starting to get good. But that's not the only fire burning inside this franchise. The next revelation is even more explosive. and it's about the quarterback everyone's been waiting to see again. Stay with me, because what comes next will flip the script in ways nobody predicted. We just talked about J.J. McCarthy watching and learning from the sideline, but now it's time to talk about when the kid actually gets back on the field. And the news, Viking Nation, is encouraging as hell. According to Matt Zenitz from CBS Sports, J.J. McCarthy is expected to be at the Vikings facilities during the bye week. And here's the key part. He's going to be throwing, not just doing rehab, not just riding a stationary bike, not just sitting in meetings, actually throwing the football with other players, working on his mechanics, and ramping up toward a return that could happen as soon as Week 7 against the Philadelphia Eagles. The plan is for him to be at the Vikings facilities during the team's bye week this week, throwing with other players as he continues to recover from his ankle injury. Sources told CBS Sports. Zenitz reported, "Think about what that means. McCarthy was initially given a 2 to 3 week timeline for his ankle injury, and he's already missed 3 games at the bye week, and that's for weeks total since he went down. The fact that the Vikings never put him on injured reserve told us everything we needed to know. They expected him back quickly, and they weren't willing to shut him down for the minimum 4-game IR stint. Now, with the extra time during the bye to get healthy, ramp up his throwing workload, and prove to the coaching staff that he's ready, McCarthy is right on schedule to return for what could be the most important stretch of the Viking season. After the bye, Minnesota faces the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles at home, then hits the road on short rest to face the Chargers, and then visits the division rival Lions in what could be a battle for first place in the NFC North. If McCarthy comes back for that gauntlet and plays well, he's a hero. If he struggles, the Wentz debate gets even louder. But here's what O'Connell said about McCarthy's approach to the bye week. "I anticipate his workload increasing. We're really going to take advantage of that bonus Monday, not just with him, but with our entire team." That tells you everything. The Vikings are planning for McCarthy to be ready. They're not treating him like damaged goods, and they're building toward getting their franchise quarterback back on the field as soon as humanly possible. Now, does that guarantee McCarthy starts in Week 7? Not necessarily. O'Connell has been very careful not to commit publicly to anything, and Mike Florio reported that McCarthy's status for the Eagles game is still up in the air. But let's use some common sense here. If McCarthy is healthy enough to throw during the bye, healthy enough to practice the week leading up to Philadelphia, and healthy enough to take contact in drills, why would the Vikings keep him on the bench? The only reason to hold him back is if Wentz is playing so well. That it would be insane to make a change, or if the coaching staff genuinely believes McCarthy needs more time. But this is a kid who was drafted to be the future, who showed flashes of brilliance in Week 1, and who has spent the last 4 weeks studying, learning, and growing as a quarterback. The Vikings didn't draft him 10th overall to ride the bench for half a season. They drafted him to be the guy, and the sooner he gets back out there, the sooner they can start building toward what this offense is supposed to look like long-term. Do you think McCarthy should start immediately against the Eagles if he's healthy? Or should O'Connell ride the hot hand with Wentz? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is the biggest decision the coaching staff is going to make all season. And if you believe McCarthy is the future and you're ready to see him take the field again, smash that subscribe button and show the rest of the NFC North that the Vikings aren't going anywhere. Because listen closely, the next chapter is where things get even more complicated, and it involves the entire identity of this team hanging in the balance during the most critical week of the season so far. And if you think that was wow, the second story might just redefine everything you thought you knew about this Vikings team heading into the stretch run. But trust me, the story only gets darker from here. The next twist will leave you speechless. We've talked about the quarterback situation, we've talked about the kicking mystery, and we've talked about McCarthy's imminent return. But now it's time to address the elephant in the room, the question that's been haunting this team since Week 1, and the challenge that Kevin O'Connell just put into words. The Minnesota Vikings still don't know who they are. Let that sink in for a second. We're 5 games into the season, sitting at 3-2, coming off a dramatic last-second win in London, and the head coach is openly admitting that this team hasn't figured out its identity yet. I think we need to use the time as a coaching staff to figure out what the identity of this year's team is, O'Connell said after the Browns game. And it's been tough to figure out exactly what that looks like. as it's been a game-by-game approach in a lot of ways, daily, and just trying to maximize our preparation, just trying to get better and continue to elevate the level of our football team, because that level has been required. We're 3-2. We'll be able to go back home after a trip that required a lot from a lot of people, and we got a win on this trip. We would have loved to walk away with 2 wins, but we were relentless today in our pursuit of finding a way to win a football game against a good football team. Now, why hasn't this team found its identity yet? One word: injuries. The Vikings have been absolutely destroyed by the injury bug, and it's not just depth pieces. We're talking about starting caliber players across the board. Left tackle Christian DOESN is still recovering from ACL surgery and had to leave the London game with knee soreness. Right tackle Brian O'Neill and left guard Donovan Jackson have been out with injuries and might not return until week 7. Center Ryan Kelly is in concussion protocol with no timeline for return. Inside linebacker Blake Cashman is on injured reserve with a hamstring injury. Edge rusher Andrew Van Ginkel has been out with a neck injury. Running back Aaron Jones missed the London game with a hamstring issue. And of course, quarterback J.J. McCarthy has been sidelined for 3 weeks with an ankle sprain. That's 8 key players, 8, who have either missed significant time or are still working their way back. How is a team supposed to establish an identity when the lineup changes every single week? I think it's very important, first and foremost, that we take advantage of our opportunities to get healthy, O'Connell said. We've been pretty banged up in some critical spots. If you just consider the original intention of your 25 starting players, the ones you really expect to lean on, then we need to get healthy. The hope now is that the bye week gives the Vikings a chance to reset, heal up, and come out of the break with something resembling continuity. Jackson, Juergens, and McCarthy are all expected to return to practice next week, and O'Connell sounded optimistic about their availability for week 7. O'Neill and Van Ginkel are more question marks, but even getting a few guys back would be huge. But here's the deeper issue. Even when everyone was healthy, or as close to healthy as possible, the Vikings still looked inconsistent. They lost DOESN and safety Harrison Smith in the first 2 games, and when both returned, Cashman, Van Ginkel, Kelly, and Jones had already started missing time. It's been a revolving door of injuries, and the result has been an offense that can't establish a rhythm, and a defense that's been dangerously vulnerable against the run. Minnesota is tied for 24th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed per game, and 22nd in rushing yards allowed per play. That's not good enough, and it's a direct result of missing key pieces in the front 7. So what is the Vikings' identity supposed to be? O'Connell mentioned that it might just be Justin Jefferson, the one constant, the one player who has been elite every single week, the one guy defenses have to account for on every single snap. Maybe the identity is simply get the ball to Jefferson and let him cook. But that's not a sustainable long-term plan, especially when the schedule gets brutal after the bye. The Vikings host the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles, travel to face the Chargers on short rest, and then head to Detroit to battle the division rival Lions. If they don't figure out who they are in the next 2 weeks, that stretch could bury them. Do you think the Vikings' identity should be built around Justin Jefferson, or do they need to establish a more balanced attack? Drop your take in the comments. And if you believe this team is about to figure it all out and dominate the second half of the season, hit that subscribe button and let the doubters know the Vikings are just getting started. Because listen closely, the final revelation is about a player who's been strangely invisible, and the head coach just went to war defending him. But the night isn't over, because the next headline is pure shock and it's heading straight for us, and it involves one of the most talented players on this roster disappearing from the stat sheet. And listen, the next chapter is the kind of news that divides a fan base right down the middle, because it involves a player who signed a 4-year, $60-6 million contract extension and has been almost invisible through 5 weeks. **TJ Hawkinson**. The Pro Bowl tight end who was supposed to be one of the primary weapons in Kevin O'Connell's offense is averaging just 30.6 yards per game this season, a far cry from the 51.9 yards per game he averaged after arriving in Minnesota via trade in 2022, and miles away from the 64 yards per game he posted in 2023 before tearing his ACL in Week 15. Hawkinson hasn't hit 50 yards in a single game this season. His longest reception is just 14 yards, and he's averaging only 8.1 yards per catch, which is a career low for a player who was supposed to be a security blanket for whichever quarterback is under center. Those numbers are alarming, but before Viking Nation starts panicking, O'Connell came out swinging in defense of his tight end. And he made it very clear that Hawkinson's lack of production has nothing to do with his ability and everything to do with the role he's been asked to play. We're asking a lot of him right now, which doesn't necessarily line up with him being one of the best route-running tight ends in the NFL, O'Connell said, unprompted, after the Browns game. There's a certain amount of sacrifice across our football team to do whatever it takes to win a game, and that mentality can be powerful as we inevitably start to get some players back. Translation: Hawkinson has been forced to stay in and block way more than usual because the offensive line has been a revolving door of injuries and backups. Over the last 2 seasons, Hawkinson was used as a pass blocker on just 0.7% of his snaps. According to Pro Football Focus, this year, that number has jumped to 6.8%. It doesn't sound like a huge difference, but when you're talking about a player whose value is in his route running, hands, and ability to create mismatches down the seam, every snap spent blocking is a snap he's not contributing to the passing game. And with the Vikings missing Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill, Donovan Jackson, Ryan Kelly, and at times even the backups, Hawkinson has had to sacrifice his stats for the good of the team. That's admirable. That's selfless. And that's exactly the kind of mentality O'Connell is talking about when he says this team is connected. But it also means Hawkinson's fantasy football owners are losing their minds. And fans who expected him to be a difference maker are wondering when the production is going to come. The good news is that as the offensive line gets healthy, Hawkinson should start to see more opportunities. He built strong chemistry with J.J. McCarthy throughout training camp, and when McCarthy returns, expect Hawkinson to be a focal point of the passing attack. Even with Carson Wentz under center, Hawkinson has shown flashes. He's just being asked to do things that don't show up on the stat sheet. O'Connell made it clear that he believes in Hawkinson's talent, and as long as the tight end stays healthy, he's going to be a key piece of this offense moving forward. As long as he stays healthy, it seems like a safe bet he'll finish with more than the 520 yards he's on pace for. One analyst wrote, and that's the expectation. Hawkinson is too talented, too experienced, and too important to this offense to finish the season with career-low numbers. The Vikings didn't pay him $66 million to be a blocker. They paid him to be a weapon, and once the offensive line stabilizes, that's exactly what he'll become again. Do you think Hawkinson will bounce back in the second half of the season? Or are you worried about his lack of production? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe Hawkinson is about to explode once McCarthy returns and the line gets healthy, hit that like button and show the league that the Vikings are about to unleash hell. Because here's the bottom line. Viking Nation, this team is 3-2, sitting in the thick of the playoff race, and they've done it with a backup quarterback, a decimated offensive line, injuries to key players on both sides of the ball, and a kicking controversy that still has everyone confused. The bye week comes at the perfect time, giving the Vikings a chance to get healthy, figure out their identity, and prepare for the most brutal stretch of the season. If J.J. McCarthy comes back and plays like the franchise quarterback he's supposed to be, if the offensive line gets healthy and starts protecting whoever is under center, if the defense figures out how to stop the run, and if T.J. Hawkinson returns to being the dominant tight end we all know he can be, this team is dangerous. But if the injuries keep piling up, if the identity never materializes, if McCarthy isn't ready, and if the defense continues to get gas on the ground, the Vikings could be staring at a lost season faster than anyone wants to admit. The next 4 weeks will define this team's entire year. The Eagles, Chargers, Lions, and Ravens are waiting. The Packers and Bears are lurking. The division is up for grabs, and the Vikings are about to find out exactly who they are. If you're riding with this team through the chaos, through the injuries, through the uncertainty, and through the fire, smash that subscribe button, drop a comment, and let the entire NFC North know that the Vikings are coming. And if this week felt like an earthquake, what's coming next could be the aftershock that topples the whole season, or the moment this team finally becomes the juggernaut we've been waiting for. Stay tuned, Viking Nation. The war is just beginning.